So, welcome everyone to the Alpha webinar series. Today we have two wonderful guests together with us. I'm Manuela Sevi, one of the co-founders of Alpha, and I'll let our panelists introduce themselves because no one better than themselves to talk about who they are and why they're here. So, Claudia, maybe we start with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, girls, for making this space for us to talk, to share a lot of what's going on in our heads in this moment, or just what we are doing. And that's what I'm going to try to do here. But I think, first of all, this initiative that we're having is great. Great. Well, my name is Claudia Vieira. I came to New York in '96 to study art, and I'm here until then. Since then, I went to the New York Study School in New York at Washington Square. It was an amazing place, and then I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, which was great. I also went to Parsons before, but I was biking to go from my home to Pratt, and it was an amazing experience. I'm so grateful to have had a chance of doing that MFA at Pratt, and it kind of created what I'm doing right now, which is creating, drawing, performances, environments, drawing installations that we recently realized it has a performative, much stronger performative aspect. But I'm gonna go on after that because we'll have Husti to introduce herself, because I start talking about the work, I kind of merge things there. Husti, why don't you tell
I'll do.
How this started?
Hi everyone, my name is Justina Gomez Romero. I'm originally from Buenos Aires. I've been at the Praxis team in New York for almost a decade. Praxis is a gallery in Chelsea with locations in New York and in Buenos Aires. And we specialize in the promotion of Latin American art. Claudia is one of the artists that we have been representing and working together for about 5-6 years now, and it is really an honor to be here, girls, supporting female entrepreneurs, supporting Latin American art, supporting Alpha, Praxis, and especially female artists like Claudia.
Renata.
The last one. Hi, everyone. I think most of you might already know me. I'm Renata Tom, a co-founder at Alpha. I'm from São Paulo, so also representing like Latin America here. And I think what I'd like to share is a little bit about the collaboration that we've established with Justina and Claudia, and how we created a new type of like art from her beautiful originals. So
fantastic. And by the way, I'm from Rio, so strong women from Latin America, watch out. I think my first question is for Claudia, and I'm going to show a little bit of the performance that happened at Praxis this year, but we'd love to learn a little bit more about your work, your process. If you could just walk us through, it would be amazing.
Well, process is the word about my work. I think we have to, do we have to allow each people, I see people here maybe that are trying to, do we have to allow the person when there's just a name? I'm not too sure. The reason I mentioned the MFA and all my education as an artist mostly happening in New York is because my practice is very language based. I work basically with time, drawing, time and space. It's very experiential. Everything that I do is my own hand doing that. I don't have assistants that work with me. barely recently some people to cut the paper because it's very physical work. I have to need another hand to hang them, to glue. Actually, Justi was one of them, sometimes 4, sometimes 8 when we were installing.
It takes a village sometimes.
It's a very physical type of practice. Yeah, I have background with dance. I grew up in a farm with boys. I was climbing trees, free, jumping, getting dirty in the fields in the south of Brazil in this farm that I grew up, and I still go often. It's like my family house, and that's what it is. And I think it's very, very influential for my practice. You know, my entire visual connection depends on nature, and I think it has a lot to do with that. I have a we had an art residency. We got a prize from Funarte, the Ministry of Culture, and this is like just to tell you I don't think it's going to be possible to see, but it's like 13 pictures of this 360 degrees view on the top of the hill at this location. We had an international art residency there. I mean, it's something that we are working slowly. It's a lifelong project, but I just wanted to not mention that the influence of landscape with my experience since I was born, basically. Land art was a very big influence on me. The work of Richard Long in England, Robert Smithson here, which is, of course, one of the main artists, the only American artist that I used in my thesis here, along with Lydia Clark, which was like, for me, the most influential figure. And I'm telling you that as I look up and I see a bunch of glass and 100 skyscrapers with seagulls going there, and I'm talking about nature, and I have like fake grass next to me here, but that's where we are right now, and we are connecting through virtual space. So I kind of have a very big question about this connection, this virtual connection that we're having right now, and I think it has great potential. I'm not going to go further because this is where I am mostly investing my time during the days of the quarantine, which is like just learning and digging slowly and a little bit of this huge amount of information that we have been exposed in the last 2 months. And it's changing every week, is different. So I am actually grateful to be using this space, which is virtual, seeing all of you, which I wouldn't be able to, and risking.
So maybe a great connection would be, Justina, why don't you tell us what drew you to Claudia's work? What was it about that specific interface, and maybe the moment as well that the two of you met?
Of course.
Yeah.
So as we are a Latin American gallery, and especially in my case, I'm a huge fan of female art. It's just, I'm impossibly drawn to it. I just cannot help it. And I detect it whenever I see it. So we're always, I would say, we do a lot of like legwork of like sharks searching for Latin American art. And remember, like the gallery started like 30 something years ago in New York. It wasn't so common to do that. So we really had to put some extra effort. It was about 6 years ago. I went to an art fair, and I was at the VIP lounge, and Claudia's work, which was a drawing on paper that had been installed in kind of a gigantic column, and she had intervened the column, so her work was kind of taking over the space basically. And I said, what is this? This is fascinating. Like her work is owning all this space. And it was part of a collaboration with El Museo del Barrio. So it was, yeah, and someone told me, oh, actually she's Latin American, she's from Brazil, she's there. And immediately I presented her work to the gallery, and we said, not only she is an unusual artist, we need an artist like her in this gallery, because it would be a spectacular addition for us, and we need to support this type of art. There has to be more of this art in the world, in Chelsea and in Praxis. So I think that's very important for other artists that might be listening to this. To, like, I think what I admire of Claudia is she takes every opportunity that she has. She's always on board, like, and she gives her, not her 100%, her 199%. So it's very like intense, soul-giving work that she creates. And I would say, yeah, many people would have said, oh, the VIP of a fair in a corner next to the bar. No, if I'm not with a gallery, I don't want to participate. And Claudia jumped on it. And from there, we did a 6-month installation in a staircase we had in our previous location. And from there, yeah, that was a nightmare. But from there, we did a 1 week performance at the gallery in Chelsea. And it was so successful.
3 days. No way.
Yeah, it was like 5 days. Yeah. And from there, she ended up having the dream show for any performance artist, as Claudia is. Yes, she did a 2-month solo exhibition at the gallery. She kind of took over our space completely. And for 2 months, 3 or 4 times a week, she would be at the gallery continuing her work. And I feel it's very important, like, from where this started, from like placing one piece at a Zoom, if you may, in an art fair. And from there it escalates. That's why I love the case of Claudia, that I would like artists to know, like, us who represent artists, we're always looking. It's not, and it's not always the way to go, like, present your CV or this or that, or no contract. Like, I think you just need to get your work out of the studio and give it, and make people see it. That's the most important thing, because people are always searching. So that's why I feel it's so important.
Fantastic. And here, maybe you can talk a little bit, you know, not just about Claudia's work, but on how performance work, or work that is usually very, you know, ephemeral, it has a timeline, can be translated into something more eternal, and what it is that we've experienced in the past.
You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
No, Renata.
Renata.
It's because I call her Hey, and everybody thinks it's Hey.
Hey. I was like, hey, okay.
No, absolutely. And I think Claudia wasn't the first artist that we collaborated. Artists who, like, whose work was based on performance. And I think the point that you mentioned about that type of work being very ephemeral, and how people can consume that, and a way of doing that like we believe is like through creating print. And that's what we did with Claudia and Justina. So I think another example that I would bring is the artist Leroy Neal, which was probably the first artist that we collaborated, whose work was based on performance. And that was an initiative that we created last year. So the images you're seeing are from his art, his performances around New York. If I'm not mistaken, the project was called Aliens of Manila or New York. But it was like a beautiful project, very interesting, very peculiar. Like, and before our collaboration, like, he would like sell the pieces like that he used for the performance as like a final work of art, or even like very large scale installations, which make it quite difficult for the average collector to purchase something like this. Like, it's not even like about the financial obstacles sometimes, but like really like space. And I think going back to Claudia's work, that applies as well. You know, obviously, like a lot of people would love to have one of the large scale installations and drawings like on like their own spaces, but like how many people can afford that, or how many people actually have the space to have that done. So I think the print, like in that sense, is a very good solution for that, as sometimes you can base out of like a unique work, like a large scale mural, like the one you guys are seeing. Based out of that image, we can create a print, which then is way more accessible, like for the larger public.
It's a democratization in a way of
yeah,
art. Yeah,
absolutely. Like it's, and what I mentioned before, it's a different, I'm sorry for the word, product, like out of like the same, or like out of like this work, this practice. So like it's just, and I think like this is something we would like to develop a little bit further, also like on how like a collaboration like of our platform Alpha with a gallery like Praxis, for instance, has no conflict, and it's actually like very complementary. Like as like the publics we are trying to reach have end up being very different. Like, and also like the final products we're offering like are also quite different.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point for us to cut to the gallery business, right, Justina? I grew up in the gallery business as well. My father is a gallery owner, so is my uncle. My cousin's an art advisor, and it's a very, very specific little world. Things are done in a very specific way. And how has this one? What drew you to the gallery world, Justina? Like, what? Why was this your dream job? And two, how has this transition been now that the gallery world has been forced to come online for the first time, I think, in its history?
So what drew me is that when I moved to New York, first I came on vacations and decided to stay and never go back. I was like, yeah, I was born here, so I had a citizenship, so that didn't cause me any troubles. I studied at NYU continuing education program, and I had this fascinating professor, artist, performer called Philippe Notre Dame. And what he would do is about once or twice a week, he would walk us around Chelsea. And I discovered what the galleries were, because we also need to remember a bit. Sometimes we take Chelsea for granted. The Chelsea Arts District is unique in the world. So I was flabbergasted by it, and how he would tell the stories and how he would describe the art and open my eyes to art. I was a 24-year-old from Buenos Aires, from like the suburbs in Buenos Aires. I had never been exposed to. So it blew my mind, and I said, this is what I want to be. I want to be a storyteller of contemporary art, and I love this neighborhood, and this is where I want to work. 3 months later, I got the job. No, not even 3 months. I think like 2 months, 1 month later, I had my job in Praxis, which is very funny because I had always expressed an interest in the gallery in the Buenos Aires location, but there was never like availability of a position, or they were never looking. So for me, it was a reassurance that New York was the place that I wanted to be. About technology and being online, luckily us, the Praxis team has always been pretty avant-garde when it comes to online platforms. I would say we joined sites like Artsy when there were just 5 employees. We would run their beta programs. Same with First Tips when they just opened their fine art platform. Same with Artspace, ArtNet. We were always like, I would go to and have like conference calls on Artsy so that they would ask us like how we had dealt with the program. So but they never offered more than like a platform to sell what we already have in inventory. So it was never a solution of how we could branch out our inventory. So when you guys came in, that's why it was relatively easy to work with you. Like, yes, this work, this dimensions, this color for like
it was not never as easy for us either.
We all, because this is the important, that's why we have not been like, we're very fortunate, but we have not been that shaken by this situation. I am personally heartbroken because I am someone who loves being in Chelsea. I've been in that seat at the reception for 9 years. So for me, like, I don't know what to do with myself now that I cannot go to
from
Chelsea.
Brooklyn to Chelsea.
I'm going. Yeah, but you're legally not allowed to open store yet, so we don't wanna.
No, I know, but you're not biking.
No, I'm biking. I go to the gallery a lot to do paperwork, but I'm not allowed to open business.
I know.
I have a stay-home order.
But I just wanted to mention that we share that too.
We share the biking passion, yes. So that's why we are always prepared in the sense, like, one of the rules for an artwork to come inside the gallery and to be registered, it has to have like a high-res image. So there are little things that I wanted to document everything. So and we're now getting more professional in having like installation views of each work. It's little things that then when a crisis like this comes, we shut down the gallery, we came with our computers home, and we had everything that we needed in order to continue. And what I personally love about Alpha, and like why we didn't doubt it partnering with you, it's because we have a print house. We make super intricate limited edition silk screens by hand that come in this particular size, which is a smaller scale. So when it comes to artists like Claudia, that for us to having a program, a performance artist, is something that really elevates our how can I say, our image, if you may. But then we're like, okay, how can we sell her? Like, how can we sell the work if we have like 3 massive pieces, but they're just 3 and they're original pieces, and yes, they're not everyone can afford them. So when you came with your proposal, we were like, this is perfect. Like, Claudia's work, besides when it's being done, it's incredibly democratic. Everyone can be a part of her process. Anyone can be part of the audience. Claudia is someone who like stops working, talks to the audience, asks them questions. Claudia's work also is very collaborative. She listens to anyone who wants to, like, who has an opinion. So that for me was very humanizing, the 2 months that we were in her show. So I feel like when Alpha came with the proposal, it only made complete sense. Like, here's a way of of making her work more democratic, of allowing anyone to have a piece anywhere in the world. And you kind of, in a way, you own this moment in time, this moment in history. Any reproductions that you're making were pieces, they're reproductions from original pieces that were done live in public. They were part of an exhibition that people were able to witness. So
fantastic.
that's what I have to say.
Yes,
Fantastic, Justina. We're gonna hire you.
No,
Marketing person.
actually, we did.
This is not paid content. This is
If
real testimony.
if you sell, we sell. That's what's important. Girl power.
And so that's a little bit of my question, and it's a question for all of you. Maybe we can start with Claudia, then Renata, and then Justina. And we're Latin American women, right? And we came to another country. Well, Justina, you're technically born in the US, but still,
14 days. I thought I had lived. I lived 14 days.
Very
Latin. No, but we know we had very specific challenges to establish the business, to create credibility, break down the barriers, visa issues. There's a number of things that, we go through as immigrants, and there's a number of things that we go through as women. I don't want to open up my Pandora's box because there's a lot, because I deal with investors. So there's a lot of things that I've heard in the past. But I'd love to hear from you guys, specifically any stories, any motivation as well for young females that want to make it in the arts.
First of all, I think Justi and I, or Praxis, in me, and became like a one thing, because we developed the last 3 years a very creative experience. I mean, we've been interacting, and this exhibition was the climax of that, I think, because we didn't know how it would be accepted by the public, and ended up being mind-blowing. It for me as an artist was such a privilege, such a gift to be able to be in the gallery for 2 months, in contact with the public, doing the work, creating the work, planning the work as we were going. It was just like, I cannot describe very easily. We recorded the entire process, so I hope that visually we will have a record of that. But it's just 2 months of recording every day, or 6 days a week. But so I don't necessarily, I kind of became a performance artist. I realized right now, because you're saying like Claudia as a performance artist. I never planned to be a performance artist. And actually, I was not comfortable about being, competing, moving body in the middle of the work. I didn't know it had to mature to this level for me to be aware that the interaction with the public, it was like just a very wide open experience, which created a lot of vital energy for me. At least I record the time that I am living in that space. It's like it's lived space recorded, because I'm breathing in and out and I'm just drawing one line. So it's a meditation, of course. It has been influenced, I didn't mention that, but I have a connection with Zen Buddhism since the late 90s. And it's a long, very strong, influential connection on the work even, and visually, formally. And so I do drawings too, and I do site-specific installations. So I did, in the end, and I think it was really a growing intensity of that experience for all of us, I think, in the end. It was pretty demanding physically. I was exhausted in the end, and I went to have a break in Costa Rica. And then the next day, the virus exploded, and it's a long story since then. But we created 2 pieces that were, we created kind of a quadruple, we don't have images here, but basically we had this big drawing, 9 feet by 9 feet, and then I complemented during the work. I started the opening with making this second drawing next to that, which had a geographical location specific to my history. It was basically a connection, mapping from where I was born in Porto Alegre, Brazil, to New York City, where I've been living since the 96, 24 years of my life. And we created 2 smaller drawings, and it's right there in my studio. I'm not in my studio right now. I'm in a house, trying to create some space to work here, but not necessarily creating a new piece, because this still didn't end for me. And there's a lot to talk about that, but I don't think we have space for that here. And that's our goal. Our goal here, I think, is to take advantage of the space that the girls, Manu and Renata, are creating with an amazing amount of energy, very positive, very creative, very innovative, enlarging the way that we artists can survive through our work. The public, art lovers, interested people, the doorman, whatever. I don't think that the doorman might be have access to that, but definitely creating an option for people to admire the work in a different way and see it and be next to it, interact with it. Does it make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, what about you? Challenges and something motivational.
To me?
Renata.
To me.
Renata, yeah.
Oh, my God, there are so many. There are so many, and still, I think, like if like I could like maybe like pick one more generic of like not even like the time like when we moved here, but like before when we started the company. I think we're two women trying to do an online business in a very analog and traditional market, which is the art market. So we're different, and I think sometimes people are afraid of being different, like because like maybe like we didn't like have like the traditional background in the arts. Manuela came from finance, like I was like a newcomer like in the arts, like, and we're trying to do something which like was mostly disagreeing like with like the other like businesses at the time. And I think that like in the end ended up being like our key for success, because like we believed like in our ideas, like, and we persevered, like even like when people didn't share the same opinion. And I think now like we're seeing that like, yeah, maybe like we're right to continue like on our path, like even like when we felt like we were completely alone. And I think that like continue being true, like when we moved the company here to the US, like we continue developing the work that we had started in Brazil, but like we're like basically nobody's here. So
When was that?
It was back in 2016, 17.
In São Paulo?
No, that's
we
when we
moved the
moved
company
to
from
the US.
here
From
from
São Paulo
Rio
or from Rio? Both
from Rio to,
right?
from Rio to New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just like continue like working hard, believing like in yourself, like, and if you do put like enough time and effort, especially when you are like in a place like the US, I think everything is possible. You know, you're gonna definitely see results. So
Yeah, we're the queens of cold calls. Cold calls work. Cold calls work when you have a good product.
I was wondering if people that came after, or if we even mentioned that in one sentence or two, what you guys do, because it was in relation to new artists that would like to interact with the platform and share their work as well and create a collaboration. Is that something that you would like to
Yeah, the
talk?
website is open. Just come in, send your work. Just alpha8inc.com. This video is actually going to be in the website, so it's going to be very easy to submit work from there. But I'd still love to hear from Justina, because I'm sure she also had some great challenges along the path.
I would say so. Like, especially because I started at 24, and now I'm almost 33, and I would say that, yeah, the first year or two, you're just this kid. I used to be much sweeter. I have developed this very tough skin. I did Saturdays alone at the gallery for 6 years. And we were like in a second floor in Chelsea, and you see a lot of like weird people. Not that it is unsafe, but I would say that as a woman, I really had to like stick up for myself, stand up for myself and respect like boundaries. I don't know, I'm like in this era of the Me Too movement, when I look back to like situations that I had 4 years ago, like I'm so proud that there's no room for that anymore. There's this, how can I say, there's this idea about us gallery girls, we're all like young and we're made to look, we have to look cute and we're behind the desk and in practice is different. I am not just answering a phone. I'm answering a phone, I'm selling, I'm packing, I'm delivering, I'm offering to collectors, I'm talking to museums, to curators. That's what I love about practice. You get to do everything there. But I there were many times that I had, many people were like, why don't you talk to your boss and ask for a better discount? I'm like, I make this decision. And this is the price you get. Many times I had, because of my age, because I was a woman, you had to deal with a lot of like unpleasant situations or situations in which you have to prove yourself in a way. And I feel it has changed so much. The attitude of especially like certain like powerful men that are the ones that come and buy to the gallery, like their attitude has changed so much because now they are held accountable finally for everything. And I feel like until things started changing, I hadn't even realized how bad they were, because we come from a very machismo culture in Argentina, where many of
and
those,
Brazil
and Brazil,
Yeah.
and where those things were normal, and they're not anymore. And I love how we as women, like now I have a colleague 24/7, and we're always like looking out for each other, you know, like there's no room for being unsafe at any moment anymore. But I feel that was a big challenge, and always like having your integrity, you know, always, because there's a lot of the art world is weird, guys, you know.
Yeah, the art world
Gotta
is
be
weird.
tough, and
Did you
Justi
watch
certainly is.
did you watch the Jeffrey Epstein documentary?
I started it last night.
Yeah, so the first victim is
Oh
an
my God.
artist. The first victim is an artist.
But the worst part of that documentary is that she was served in a plate by the woman who ran the school you went to, Claudia. She was served on a plate by another woman. And this creepy guy made other women serve other women on plates. So that's the thing. I think it has changed so much, you know. We're always like on guard for each other now. And also I have to say, men's attitude at this, not that it has changed, but it has stopped. Because that doesn't come for free anymore.
Yeah, because we started arresting them.
Finally,
We started arresting them. And
Yeah,
the arts is a weird world. You're absolutely right. And I think the one lesson that we all have is stand up for each other, right? Help women.
Totally. Help women. That's why it's
Buy women artists.
my collection is only women artists. I just bought a couple of weeks ago. I want like buy one or two a year, like major pieces, but only women. And I got my partner to do that too. So I'm like, only women. If he wants male art, he can paint, draw, whatever he
Amazing. And I think we kind of started touching on my next question. What was the shift that you felt in your career, the way that the world saw you? And I think we can start with Claudia again. When you started working out of New York, how was the reaction in Brazil? For us, when we moved the company from Brazil to New York, there was a massive inflow of artists that wanted to work with us, collectors in Brazil that wanted to like start purchasing pieces, because you immediately get that stamp of credibility, right?
Right. Yeah, with me it was the opposite, because I came to study here. And I go very little to Brazil. And that's why I'm so interested in bringing this show there, especially to Porto Alegre. Because I stayed, I never left. And I go all the time. I got prizes there from the Ministry of Culture, Funarte. Projects of contemporary art was a great honor for me. And it was 2000. My child was 1 year old. I remember her putting the hand inside the bucket of paint, and she was like happy looking like that. And this amazing building, modernist building, the Palácio Capanema. And it was great, wonderful. I mean, it was intense to work in Rio, in the center, like with these kids on the street with glue and drugs, heavy vibe, and it was very carioca experience. And wonderful experience too. I had to go, I stayed in an artist's house. I had to go with a girl that could stay with my child, so I could be there like 12 hours a day, because they created this big installation covering the entire space with the line as well, mapping Rio in Porto Alegre. And it was like a wonderful project. And so that was one experience, 2008 or 7. I also was at Festival Verbo, Galeria Vermelho, curated by Daniela Labra, which is a great performance, international performance festival in São Paulo, and she started with that. Mine was the sixth version of that, and it was with a video projection of similar long story, still with the line, using the line as a visual element, but it was a performance in a bicycle in Kyoto during 3 months of a residency that I had there. There's a sound element to that as well, but it's a long story. This is an amazing project that also was shown at the Museum of Modern Art in Brazil, in Bahia, which is an amazing museum. Solar do União, a historical place in the middle of the ocean. It was really beautiful. So other than that, I don't even want to use a lot of time here because that's what I want to do more. What else happened in Brazil? The art residency that I already mentioned. And now I'm interested in bringing the show to Porto Alegre or to a museum because I think the work have developed. It started like this large site-specific installation that I did at the Queen's Museum in 2000, like 10 years ago. Was an amazing opportunity as well. They found me online, and I was in the middle of a silent retreat, meditation retreat, and I was debating, shall I leave, shall I go and write a proposal? And it was an amazing, beautiful story that I did. I didn't leave the retreat, and I did that in a break, maquette, and I took a picture in the library with a 99 cents file, manila file, and I took a nice picture, and it looked like it was a big maquette or whatever, like very beautifully done with the line like this behind Justina. And it was the same form of double trace. It was Porto Alegre, New York, which is like a metaphor for me. And we're writing a book about that, hopefully, or at least the exhibition can continue to its trajectory and the experience I develop in the work. But what that I can end, I don't know how much more time we have, but when I start, I'm totally involved with this project right now. So it's hard for me to not stop thinking about that. I want to focus on what you are more interested in sharing here, because it's in the middle of the creative process of this still. I didn't finish the Boutrace yet. I mean, it was like a 10 years old exhibition, closing of a cycle. And I'm extremely grateful to Cecilia Molina, which is the curator of Praxis in Buenos Aires. We were like daily interaction. Actually, she came here, she came to my studio. We had like 7 hours studio visit and it was an amazing experience and intense, and it didn't stop until we were like, okay.
Amazing, Claudia. As you mentioned, we're almost out of time. So I just want to give Justina an opportunity to answer that last question about, and this could relate to Praxis as well. Why was it that Praxis chose to have a gallery in New York? Did this change credibility with Latin American collectors? What is it that New York means for the global art world, basically?
For me, at least in my decade at Praxis, what really changed was moving from Praxis had been 30 years in New York, and in those 30 years, we hadn't managed to be on a ground floor. That's how you feel like you made it in Chelsea when you are in the ground floor, and. Nothing. When I started at the gallery, I was like, okay, like my mission, like what I will come, like my little grain of sand, as we say in Spanish. My mission is to bring this gallery like I'm incredibly passionate about the project, about Latin American art, but we need more visibility. So my mission is going to be like, we need to be in a ground floor. We need to have a storefront window. It's a lot of effort, but if your program is consistent and if you believe in it as we do, it's going to pay off. And I would say like the success that we have experienced since we are on a ground floor is incomparable to our last 20 something years, like being on a second floor, on a fourth floor. It's immense effort, but we did it. And also I feel like that's when people started saying, oh, Praxis, the gallery, the Latin American art gallery, that it's like there on the corner of 20th and 10, and I see our artists' careers have started growing and becoming massive, you know, like since they started having historical shows at our new space. So and we started talking to museums much more. We started talking to important collections much more, and to public spaces much more. So I would say that's when I feel like we made it. August 18, 2017, which is funny because it's the same anniversary of when I arrived to New York. So it's very funny, that date. Clearly it's important, at least in my history.
Fantastic. Renata, any last remarks? We're up to our last minute.
Yeah, I think what I like to comment is like more like in regard of what you just asked Justina, in terms of reasons why for bringing the company from Brazil here. And I think like we always knew that we were gonna end up being an international company. And we saw the Brazilian market as a fantastic way for us to test some of our concepts in a safer way. It's our home. And I think like, you know, like a lot of the predictions we had, in fact, like when we were there, did not end up applying for the market here. Like, and the company changed a lot. But New York happens to be like the biggest window that like we have like for the rest of the world, you know. So anything that like you do here end up being like a signal for like other markets, and we did feel that like in a very like clear way, because like once like we established the company here, like it's what Manuela mentioned, like the number of artists signing up, like an interest, like grew so much back in Brazil. Not necessarily like that happened like the same way here. Like we had to like put a lot of work, effort, and time like in building like our audience in the US and like worldwide. But definitely like we think that like it became easier for us to continue like developing like this more technological art business like in a place like New York. Like I think like there are like more space for experimentation here. Like,
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank all of you for your time. This has been an amazing conversation. The video will be uploaded to the platform, and you know, you'll all be able to access it. So thank you very much, very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Be well, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye.